we have been stubborn about our goals, stubborn about making sure that things that we want achieved happen. From day one, I was asking difficult questions. My mother was a social worker, she ran a school for orphans, and my father was a self-made businessman. And I grew up in an environment where asking questions was encouraged, speaking the truth was encouraged. And I was about to graduate from college when 9/11 happened, and I thought that my world had changed entirely because all of these journalists were parachuting into my world, and they didn't understand the context, who we were as a people, what we had gone through. And I felt that because I could straddle two worlds, I could tell stories from my part of the world. So I had a degree in economics and political science. I'd never studied film, and I came back home to Karachi in December 2001. And the first thing that hit me was the sheer number of Afghan refugee children on the streets of Karachi. And I knew then that that was a film I wanted to do, because everyone was talking about the bombing of Afghanistan, and people were talking about the invasion and about the wins, but nobody was talking about the youngest victims of the war. And then I drew up a list of about 80 organizations in the United States that I could apply to, who I thought would help me either fund the film or help me make the film. You know, when you're 19 or 20 years old, you're very naive and you think that you can, just by writing to all of these people, that something would come out of it. And I, you know, lots of people wrote back and said that they wouldn't be interested. Many people didn't even respond. But I just thought that maybe it was because I hadn't knocked on the right door. And so I continued to persist and ask, and finally, one day we had, I wrote to the president of New York Times Television. The New York Times had set up a television unit, and the president of New York Times Television wrote back to me and asked me for my proposal, and I sent my proposal in. And then 15 minutes later, he invited me to New York. So I bought my first suit and I got on an Amtrak train and I went off to New York, and I pitched my film to them. And, you know, as I left, I had secured funding for my first film and the promise of training as well. When I began making films, I would think about my barometer of anger. If something made me very angry and I was moved by it, then I wanted to anger society. I wanted to hold up a mirror to society so that they would look at that issue and want to do something about it. And I wanted people to also think about the fact that these things were happening on their watch, and what were they doing to make sure that no one else would experience it. I think that many of the topics that I have chosen have gravitated towards marginalized communities, women, children, refugees, or war zones. And in all of those issues, or in many of the countries that I've filmed in, the thing that has bound me through all of those topics has been the people that I have filmed. Because given all of what is thrown at them, given the adversity that they face, they still get up in the morning, they still have a smile on their face, they go through their day, and there's a lot that we collectively as human beings can learn from that. We've had success, and that angers people. The fact that a woman has a voice angers people. The fact that a woman has a voice that leads to change further angers people. So when I think about the dangers, I choose to concentrate on the successes, because if I wasn't being successful, the danger would have gone away. So I refuse to be intimidated by the threats or by the anger that's directed at me. And instead, I'd like to concentrate on the fact that each win that we have is not simply a win for us as a film organization, as a film company, or as a filmmaker. It's a win for all of those people that we are fighting and all of those people whose lives we're hoping to change. My experience with the Tällberg Foundation and the award has been that it has reaffirmed a faith in me that one must continue to persevere, and doesn't matter what people say or what comes your way, but that holding up a mirror to society is an absolute must, and that you can be a leader even if you're just a filmmaker.